Today on Monson Made This, it is time for Vegan Air Frying 102. The first video that ever did really well on my channel was my Vegan Air Fryer 101 video, and in that video I showed you how to bread and air fry tofu and cauliflower. Well, today I am back with a sort of update of that video. I have learned a lot since making that video, and I've also come up with a new technique for breading and air frying tofu that I actually like a lot better. And this one is actually gluten-free, and there's one less step. So let me show you exactly how I like to bread my tofu and how I air fry it, and then I'll show you how I like to serve it. The trick for this tofu is to use it fresh out of the package, meaning you're not pressing it or trying to get too much extra liquid out, or you are marinating it as I have here. These pint jars are perfect for a half block of tofu each, and I've just cut them into cubes, and this is like a teriyaki marinade, and I'm calling this a savory marinade. I of course will have the recipe for these down below, but these have been marinating for a couple of days. You could do it for a day, but the trick is that you do want the tofu to have liquid within it. So let's talk about the breading now. These are gluten-free, so I'm going to be using a Bob's 1-to-1 gluten-free flour, and I'm going to use 3 parts of that, so I'm going to use 3/4 of a cup. The nice thing about this flour is that most of it is kind of a rice base, so this really helps with making the tofu crispy. And then I'm going to be adding some corn flour. This is just basically ground up cornmeal, and this is going to add just kind of a little bit of flavor, and it's going to help it to brown up a little bit. And I'm just using 1/4 cup or 1 part of that. To season, I'm going to add some smoked paprika. Most of the seasoning I have is in my marinade, so I'm not going to worry about seasoning it too much. Oops. A little bit of garlic powder. Making a mess here. A little bit of onion powder. And there is quite a bit of salt already in my marinades, but I'm going to add a little bit more to the breading, and then some pepper. All right, so I'm going to mix this up, and then I'll show you how we put it on the tofu. If you have seen the Air Fryer 101 video, which you should, I'll have it linked above, you'll know that I used a chickpea batter to stick panko breadcrumbs onto the tofu and the cauliflower. Well, today we're not making any batter whatsoever. In that video also, I advise not to use white flour because it'll come out kind of like a raw flour tasting. We don't have to worry about that with this gluten-free flour. So what's going to happen is the liquid that's inside of the tofu and on the surface is going to not only adhere the gluten-free flour, but that flour is going to help draw some liquid out of the center of the tofu, and it's going to create kind of like a battered effect on the outside. And then when we put it into the air fryer, it's going to crisp up nicely, and it won't have that raw flour flavor, and it'll be perfect. So what I'm going to do here is start to take the tofu out, toss it in our flour mixture here, and I'm going to put it on this kind of baking sheet to hang out. It needs to hang out for probably about 10 minutes. Once you see the surface is no longer powdery, but like battered, then it's ready to be air fried. So let's get the tofu in. First thing I want to do here is just like if I were making some other deep fried flour breaded thing, I'm going to be adding just a little bit of the marinade or liquid into the flour mixture so that it kind of gives us a few little clumps, and that's how we get just like a better surface texture, kind of a craggy thing, you know, just like a deep fried chicken, I hate to say. But yeah, it just gives us some nice surface texture. All right, so let's go ahead and put the tofu in. Again, I'm not going to be draining it. I want the liquid to stay on the surface and inside, and I can handle probably a couple pieces at a time here. So I'm just dropping them into the flour mixture. If the tofu looks like it's a weird color, it has been in this sort of teriyaki marinade for a couple of days, so it's taken on a gray color. So I'm just gonna lightly toss them in here, and I'm just putting them onto this sheet. This is where they're going to just kind of finish, the flour will finish absorbing the liquid. You could bake it on this if you wanted, if you didn't have an air fryer. I would recommend probably about 400 degrees maybe, and you're gonna wanna flip them over halfway. So I'm gonna do another batch here. Same thing, and then I'll do the same thing with the other savory flavored marinade as well. All right, I have all of my teriyaki flavored ones floured up, and you can start to see, I don't know if the camera can get this, but you can start to see on the first one that it's already starting to become a little bit less white, and you can see that the flour mixture is absorbing the liquid, and that's gonna happen to all of these. And again, you wanna wait until that's done before you cook them. I also like to kind of flip them over once, just to make sure that all sides have kind of an equal way of absorbing. I don't know if that makes sense. I turn them over at least once while they're doing this. So I'm gonna do the same thing with the savory one, and then we have to wait. All right, I'm down to just my last couple. The savory one, I probably should have told you what that flavor is. It's basically just some Bragg's liquid amino, some vegetable broth, some garlic powder, onion powder, and a little bit of smoked paprika. But for both the teriyaki one and that one, I'll have the recipe linked from my website. Also, I know that someone will probably ask this in the comments, but could you use a paper bag to do this, to put the flour mixture in the paper bag and then toss the tofu in there? Absolutely, I have done that before. It worked well. The only bag I have on hand right now is the one I used to ripen avocados, so I didn't want to use that, but it is definitely an option and would make things go a little bit faster. So I have everything, all my tofu. It has the flour on it. It just needs to hang out. I'd say maybe 10-15 minutes. The way I discovered this recipe was actually, I had started to bread these and I got called out and I had to leave, and I was gone for about an hour, came back and I was like, all right, well, I guess let's go ahead and air fry these, and they were amazing. And so I've just tried to duplicate that process. But if you notice after, I'd say maybe 20 minutes, that there's still some dry bits, it's not that big of a deal. If you have like a squirt bottle, you can spritz it lightly with a little bit of water or some of the marinade, just to make sure that everything is fully absorbed, but you really don't want a ton of like flour on the surface of these. So we're just gonna wait. While we do that, I'm going to make for you a really delicious salad dressing that you can use to make a salad to serve these on top of. So let's do that. All right, we're going to make a dressing here that is sort of my like oil-free answer to the good sauce that I have. So I'll link that as well, but it's an amazing sauce that I use for everything. And I was thinking, oh, it does have a bunch of oil in it. People don't necessarily like oil in everything. So I wanted to make a really delicious dressing that didn't have any oil in it. So I came up with this sweet, savory, maple, miso, mirin dressing. So pretty much everything goes in equal amounts, and then we shake it together, and it's a delicious dressing that I'm going to be putting on a bean salad. So let's start throwing ingredients into a jar. Today I am using a 2 tablespoon ratio for everything. So I'm starting out with 2 tablespoons of miso paste. And I think this is just kind of like a white miso paste. I'm going then to add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. And you could probably use agave or whatever sweetener you prefer. 2 tablespoons of mirin, which is kind of a sweet cooking wine. And then 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. You could use apple cider vinegar. I just maybe wouldn't use kind of like a white wine vinegar. It might be just a little bit too strong. And then 2 tablespoons of Bragg's liquid aminos, which you could also just use a low sodium soy sauce. What's happening here is we have just kind of a really good balance of sweet and savory. We have salty miso, sweet maple syrup, salty Bragg's with the sweet Mirin. One of the only things that's not in that same ratio is some garlic, so that's just about a teaspoon of minced garlic, and also a little bit of ginger, just about a teaspoon, half teaspoon of that. I'm gonna spice it up with a little bit of chili flake and some more garlic powder. I'm going to be adding kind of a secret ingredient here to thicken the dressing up, and that is going to be some ground up chia seeds. And I'm gonna probably put about a teaspoon of ground chia seeds. You could make this whole thing in the blender if you wanted, and that way you wouldn't have to grind these ahead of time. All right, so chia seeds go in. Now we're just going to lid this up and shake it. Now we just shake it up. Ben was commenting that it seemed like there's a lot of ingredients in this dressing, and that may be. I do feel like most people do have some sort of maple syrup or agave syrup, some soy sauce, vinegar on hand. Miso maybe not so much, but it's definitely a great thing to have on hand. And the mirin also I use a ton in Asian dishes that I make, so. It is a lot, but the dressing's really good. All right, so that's it, shaken up. Takes a little bit for the chia seeds to kind of activate and thicken things up. So this is just gonna hang out. You could use this right now, but we're gonna wait a minute, and let's check on the tofu and see if that's ready to go in the air fryer. It has been 10 minutes and the tofu is nice and battered now. The flour that's on the outside has absorbed the liquid from inside of the tofu, and it's just gonna be kind of a nice, like as if it were battered, but the cool thing is it's not going to drip through the racks of the air fryer. So next step is just to move it onto my air fryer rack. If you were gonna bake it on this, I would maybe take the tofu off just to get any of the extra flour away, but yep, let's get it air fried. My tofu is all on my air fryer rack here. Now I'm gonna be using a Breville Smart Oven Air, which is how I'm able to cook all of these at the same time. If you are using maybe like a Philips or a smaller air fryer, then you probably would wanna work in batches just so that you don't have things stacked, that everything can brown evenly. And you're also gonna wanna maybe flip them or toss them maybe once throughout the cooking process, just to make sure that everything gets browned evenly. So my air fryer is heated to 400 degrees right now. They're gonna go in, it'll probably take about 20 minutes. I'll know they're done when they are nice and crispy and brown. So let's get them in. I made that dressing so that I can make a salad, so that I have something to put the tofu on, so that I can eat it on my Monson Ate This channel, which is basically my Patreon. So follow that link below, subscribe to my Patreon, and you can watch Monson Ate This. There's already, I think, maybe 6 or 7 videos on there now, and I do upload a video of me eating and chatting to Patreon after every recipe video, with the exception of the last one, which was a short video, but never mind. So I'm gonna go inside the fridge here and grab a bunch of stuff that I can make a salad out of. So I have some brown rice. This is gonna be more like a bean and rice salad, not necessarily like a green salad. I have some lentils. I made some black-eyed peas yesterday that I will use. And I think I'll add some of these. I have some pickled cauliflower that I made after the last fermentation video. So I think these are good. I'll just toss these with the dressing and probably even do it in one of these jars so I can shake it up. So let's make a salad. Just pulled a bunch of stuff out of the fridge. I also found some frozen peas in the freezer and some onions I forgot to grab in the first round. But I'm gonna just assemble everything here in this jar of lentils. I made this the other day, put a picture of it on Instagram, and yeah, it was a really delicious salad, so I decided to share how I made it. And so just gonna add some onions here. It's a good way to get rid of leftovers. So some onions, and I'm just using a funnel here to help me not make that big of a mess. And I'm adding some cooked brown rice. Looks good. Going to add some of these. Let me rinse off my spoon. These are some black-eyed peas. And then some peas. They're still frozen, but they'll thaw by the time I'm ready to eat it. Hope I'm not overfilling this. And then I'll just add the cauliflower on the side. All right, throw in some dressing, probably use most of this. Just gonna throw a lid on it, shake it up, and this could hang out in the fridge. It could just chill on the counter. You could eat it right away or as soon as the peas are thawed. It's just a nice little hearty salad. But I'm gonna use this just to kind of put the tofu on top of to make it a little bit more of a meal. All right, that looks shaken up. Just gonna let this hang out, and I think it's actually time to flip over the tofu. All right, it has been 20 minutes. The tofu is done, perfectly golden and crispy, and I'm ready to dig in with these, give them a taste, put them on top of my salad. So let's assemble that. All right, I'm just going to spoon a bit of this salad into a plate here. This tofu, though, you could serve it any way you wanted. I've used this as the crispy tofu for my curry. My only suggestion is just to add it at the very end on top, like I'm doing with the salad, because there's no oil in the breading at all, so it will absorb liquid and have a tendency to maybe not be as crispy after it's absorbed a little bit of liquid. So it's always best just to go on top at the end. So it's gonna, oh, they're not staying on top here, but just add a few of these, trying to anyways. And then I'm going to drizzle just a little bit of our dressing on top, tie everything together. I would like to add maybe a little bit of cilantro or some green onion, but I don't have any of those today, so we're getting it just like this. So this delicious bean salad with this tofu, very healthy, high protein meal. We didn't use any oil in this whatsoever, and it's delicious, tasty, crispy, savory, everything you'd want. It is the moment I've been waiting for. I finally get to taste this tofu. It is perfectly crispy, can hear it. And on the inside, it's still soft. You're not gonna eat this and be like, oh my God, it's just like chicken. It's tofu, it's great. But it has a nice crunch, full of flavor from the marinade. Even if you decided not to marinate it and you just cooked it right out of the package, breaded like this, it's still incredible. And this salad that I've made is perfect to go underneath it, but you could also just eat these as nuggets and, I don't know, just dip them in barbecue sauce or ketchup. It's a delicious way to do tofu. It's probably the #1 way that I do it pretty much all the time now. And that salad, I love that good sauce, but this dressing definitely gives it a run for its money. Maybe slightly a little bit healthier than that because it doesn't have all of the oil. So if you're concerned about that, that's definitely a plus with this dressing. Also, just throw a bunch of beans and peas and rice together and you've got a delicious salad, either to go with your tofu or just on its own. So thank you for watching this video. Definitely give this tofu a try. You're gonna love it. Comment below how you plan on using this or how you do use it, how it worked out for you. And definitely subscribe to this channel if you have not yet already and click the bell notification so that it tells you when my new videos come out. I do have new cooking videos, usually once per week. Sometimes I have more, sometimes I maybe go a week and a half, but still, I'll still be here. Also follow me on Patreon, the link is below for that. That's where you'll see Monson Ate This, where I will be eating some more of this dish and just talking generally about the inspiration for my recipes or what's going on, just a little bit more personal. And if you're interested in watching people eat and talk, then definitely go to Monson Ate This via my Patreon account. So thank you to everyone that subscribed. Thank you for watching this. I will see you next time with a brand new recipe video. Yeah, have a great week. Bye.